Thanks for spending your Saturday evening with me. What you hear in the background is my old band, On the Might of Princes. It's a special episode because we're celebrating the near 20th anniversary of this album that we put out. I always get confused because the album was re-released so many times, but I remember making it, I think, writing it in 1999, and I think we recorded in 2000, and then I think it came out in 2001. So in a way, yeah, so we can call it a 20th anniversary. It's a bittersweet time for us because our singer Jason Rosenthal passed away in 2013, so he's not around to enjoy any of the new attention or whatever you want to call it that the band has gotten, 7 years after his passing. So before I get to the interview with my former bandmates Tommy Orza, who played bass and started the band, I am not an original member. The first drummer was Nicole, who played on the first album, The Making of a Conversation, which came out on Rock Lock Records. Shout out to Mike Andriani. And I'll be having Lou Fontana, the guitar player of On the Might of Princes, after we talk to Tom. I want to thank Dead Broke Records. This record came out originally on Creep Records. It was re-released several times on Rock Lock Records and Traffic Violation Records, and now it's on from Iron Chic put this out on Dead Broke Records, and you can see it's a little different. And I want to give a shout out to Hugo from Kill Your Idols and Locked Inside for the amazing job he did on the layout. This is what the limited edition vinyl looks like. That is sold out. We have 40 copies left. A couple hundred of you guys bought the record. Anyway, I'm going to talk to my first guest, Tommy Orza, in just a second. Thank you for joining us. And hi, Greg. Hi, Joe Grillo. Hi, Dean. Hi, Justin Lawyer. Hi, Keely. Tommy!
Hey, what's up? How are you doing?
How are you?
Good, good. How are you? Hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Your face is very big on the screen.
It's big. There you go. How's that?
That's good. You can lean back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was obviously, hey, Emily. That's Jason's girlfriend, Emily, that's joined us. And a lot of you are old friends and family, so thanks for tuning in. I was just talking about where you are and where you want to be and how it was re-released and came out about 20 years ago. I was not an original member of the band. You started the band. So I don't know, take me back. Like, you and Lou were friends and playing music before On the Might of Princes. So like, maybe why don't we start with like your guys' friendship and where you guys came from and how you started playing music together.
Well, with Lou, I have started, I guess probably the first band I was in was with my friend Dave and Mike. And we were just like, had like a rotating cast of guitarists. We couldn't really find anyone that was sticking. One was my cousin Scott, and then we just like, he was getting busy with sports and things like that. We were all very young. This is like, we were, I think at the time, 14 or 15, no, 15, 16. And we were at a party playing. Me and Lou had a mutual friend who actually is my wife now, and but she introduced us at some party that they were at, one of her best friend's house, Christine, and we just started. We just hit it off right away. We were just like playing. He got up and started jamming with us, and just we had like an immediate bond right away. And that was, we got, that came to like hanging out every day and jamming, and then we just started this band. That was a band called Box. It was in 1993, I'm sorry, 93. And that was it. It was just like one of those things, just hit off really well, on the phone all the time, hanging out all the time, jamming, and just like learning to play together, And that time, that kind of music was maybe more a little bit like Helmet or things like that. It's very like drop D, like whatever you want to call that music, Quicksand, Helmet kind of stuff. And that was it. And we played, that was like probably 2 years, but we started playing locally. with like I guess a lot of heavier bands. This was like around the time when like Tension was around and Vision Disorder, things like that. So we started to get lumped in with that kind of crowd. Um, and that was it. And then just we broke up mainly because of I moved, and then everyone started started going to college and stuff like that. But we still remained really good friends. So then when On the Mic started, this was years later, 3 years later. Um, I just me and Jason had started the band in '96, or the idea of the band. What happened was
Well, Tom,
Jason.
let me stop you there before you
Okay.
start getting into that part. Where were you guys from originally when you guys met and did this? You were in Eastern Long Island, right?
Right. We grew up. We went to different high schools, but grew up maybe like 10 minutes down the street. He was in Port Jeff, and I was in Selden.
That
Um,
right. So that's for I mean, not everybody watching is from Long Island, but for me that was almost like going to another state because
yeah,
when you in context to Manhattan or Queens or Brooklyn, these towns that you're talking about where you and Lou are from, and Jason, and I think the original drummer Nicole is like probably like we're talking like an hour to an hour and a half at the end of Long Island
it
away.
was yeah. Sorry, yeah. It was like probably it wasn't. It was in the middle. Maybe a little like probably like an hour to like Montauk or something like that, where it was like a little further out. But it definitely was a good hour and a half train
Yeah.
ride or to get to go to see shows like Roseland and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to something you said because I always thought it was interesting, like on the Might of Princes, which we'll get into in terms of like how you and Jason met and how the band started. But we were never really seen. I mean, actually, let me take that back. I think that we had a affiliation with the Long Island hardcore scene, but the
Right.
roots of the band were even deeper in the hardcore scene than people may realize. You and Lou, as you were saying, when you played in Box, which was kind of like a post-hardcore Helmet type of band, you guys did you guys grow up with Joe Rubino
We
and
did. Yeah.
all those
Well, what
guys?
happened
Tension.
at that time? Yeah, because we were our drummer Dave is like one of my best friends. Actually, I knew him. We met when we were like four. Like we've been childhood friends. We started literally playing the same week, playing our instruments. Like we had the idea of a band before we knew how to play anything. It was that kind of thing. But he started really getting it heavily into hardcore and stuff like that. And I liked a lot of that stuff, especially like VOD at the time. Um, I always liked Tension when I watched them, stuff like that. But he was like very animated, like we have to be a hardcore band. It was like that thing when he wanted to place like an image on it. So we on one of our flyers he was doing the flyer, New York hardcore. Because like he lived up to all those bands. Even though we were nothing like, we still had the energy, that kind of energy, but we know we were close to like being a hardcore band, at the time.
Right, right.
But he put on the flyer, and then Tension, I believe it was Tension at the beginning of the end, which turned out to be Outrage. They came to the show because they saw that on the flyer. And maybe, I don't know what they thought of the band, but we hit it off with them really well as far as people. So we started hanging out with them a lot. And then they started, we just became pretty close friends. And they would put us on their shows, so we started playing in that scene, even though maybe we didn't really, we were kind of outside the box a little bit. But it was always, it was that thing. It was like every Sunday we'd play at the Roxy Music Hall. That was that place in Huntington that had shows. We did some shows like Half Man. It was just a really fun time. It was like, even though I didn't really like all those bands, it was still a pretty communal, fun
Yeah,
thing. Kind of how
yeah.
we.
No, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I thought that that might be an interesting sort of anecdote to, especially for anyone watching that's from Long Island, that like we actually um, had very, very much came out of that scene, whether
Yeah.
it was voluntary or not, that those were the kind of people that we were kind of around, and especially you guys. Um, you met Jason, the singer of On the Might of Princes, when and how? Actually, wait, before I go there,
Okay.
didn't you and Lou want to start a band before you
Well,
found
this is
Jason?
what happened was me and Lou, we just stopped when I moved. I actually moved for family reasons, moved to Florida around 95. And I was just like, it was one of those moments of like, I just really, really wanted to be in a band. It was like, I was just kind of like lost as far as like, I knew that was, as a bass player at the time, we didn't really write much music. I was kind of at the mercy of trying to find a project to be involved in, and I was like getting really, really heavily into a lot of different kinds of music. So in my head, I was like wanting to do something that was like, had that quicksand sunny day vibe, but also mixed with a lot of like, I don't know, some of the maybe the 4AD lush kind of stuff. And I just had this like image of what I kind of wanted in a band, but like nobody to play with. And then '95 was like very ska punk oriented, you know what I mean? Especially when I was in Florida, so I couldn't find people to play with. And I was like, all right, let me just spend a summer in New York just to like get out of this area, at least jam with some people that I knew. One of the guys I knew was this guy, Rich Capella. And he was kind of in this, we had the kind of the same idea of what we wanted to do with the band. So me and Rich started playing with Dave, who was the drummer from Box, my old friend, and just like testing out so many different singers. I mean, we had this like 1 month or maybe even more of like testing out like these people that were like screaming because it was still aggressive music. We knew we wanted to mix the aggression with maybe something a little more pretty, I guess, um but like nothing was working, so we went, None of the Above. I'm sure you know the None of the Above record store.
The classic record store in
Yeah,
Center.
we went in. We would just go there. We like loiter there all the time. So we went in there.
Hold on a sec. So None of the Above, for anyone that doesn't know, was like a basically like a underground record store
Yeah,
that had like punk, hardcore, indie rock, and it was, there weren't many of those places in Long Island. There was probably a few like Slip Disc and Utopia and None of the Above. So as you were saying, you went to that record store and then
yeah. And it was such a cool place because like it was either that or like what was the big one around there? I don't even remember. But that was the only one we knew. We'd go there even to give them mainstream stuff because we liked the guys that worked there and stuff. So we went in there one day and I saw it was literally one of those like paper flyers of like, want to start a band that's like Fugazi and Sonic Youth and all this stuff. And I was like, oh shit! Like there was a guy that played guitar and sang, and there was no one. This was the time, like especially like where Florida had the ska boom at that time. New York was like very like hardcore. Like you couldn't find anyone that didn't want to scream or. So I saw that. I was like, all right, that's that. I could vibe with that because it was something that was kind of off the center of what was happening. So I was the only, and none of the, you take those little flaps with the phone numbers on it. None were taken. So like nobody was calling this guy. So I grabbed one right away. I went home. I was staying at my aunt's house at the time, and I called him, and like he was really like shy. Like this was Jason, and I was like, come over. We play every day. At this point, we were playing all the time. Um, Come to my, Dave's house. We'll jam and see what happens and stuff. So he got there first. Jason, got dropped off by his dad. I staying down the street from Dave's house to my aunt's house, and I'm walking down the street, and I saw him. From really from far away first. And I was like, "Who's Dave talking to? Like a little kid or something?" He looked like a little, because he's so small, at that time especially. He was only like maybe 19, and it was another one of those moments of like we jammed like hours and hours, and it just like fit right away. Me and him.
just you and him, just you and Jason.
As far as vibing, no, the whole band.
Or was Luke there too?
Who?
When you jammed?
Who? No, that time, no.
That's what I meant.
This was still with Rich Capella, Jason, me, and Dave.
Got
and we just vibed really well. And like at the time, Dave was working a lot. Rich was doing a lot of other things. So me and Jason just started hanging out all the time and like jamming in his room or talking about music, things like that. And like we just had an immediate vibe of like music and connection, and at the time, he was very shy and maybe a little reserved, but it was still that kind of thing where it was just like we knew we wanted to play with each other, had the same vision I was speaking of when I was like lost and looking for people. He kind of shared the same kind of thing of wanting to do aggression, but not in this way that was this like loud hardcore stuff that was happening. So then what happened was I had to move back to Florida. He met a girl online, moved to Chicago. But we kept in touch. We had this like we're still gonna start this band at one point. Even though there was not.
Tommy, what year is this?
This was 95, 96.
Okay.
So once that we were like always like, oh, we'll start a band again, like whatever, we'll figure it out when and where or anything like that. Because he was in this mode of still hopping around in different states, meeting people and like especially girls and stuff. And like so he wasn't kind of like hot. He would stay in Connecticut, Long Island, Chicago. So he was like all over the place. But he would send me, you know, it's obviously pre-internet, so he would send me cassettes once a month of stuff he was working on musically, of like acoustic or even sometimes some noise stuff, just like, oh, write bass line this and stuff like that. And I would send shit back to him. So it was this very like postal service kind of way of like writing songs together.
What
And
you
then
other cassette tapes?
yeah, we were sending each other cassettes. I actually have one. I just found one a couple of weeks ago actually now. So
Are you mailing them to each other?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, he would mail it to me with like a letter. It was like literally we would write letters to each other, you know, because he was always he was staying at people's houses. He never really had a set phone number to call, so I get a letter from Chicago or Connecticut, wherever he was staying at the time, and with a cassette wrapped in it, and I would send stuff back to him or where he was staying. And then we lost touch for maybe like 2 months. He had some, you know, some personal issue happen. And I wound up moving back to New York, and he moved there within 2 weeks of me, just serendipitously. It wasn't like a thing where we like planned it out. And he had he wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to Florida. It got forwarded back to where I was in New York, and he'd say, "Oh, I'm in New York. If you ever could pop back there, we should start a band again." You know. And I was like, "Holy shit!" So I got a number. And then we met up that week after that, maybe. And at the time, Rich was getting more into like trip hoppy kind of stuff, like Portishead, things like that. Dave was maybe not playing this so much, so we did meet up, the four of us again, that original band from '96.
Well, how did Lou and Nicole come into the picture? I know
Well,
you're there, but
yeah. So Dave was maybe not interested in playing, and Rich really wanted to do this, like, you know, that Portishead kind of stuff. So me and Jason, like, we have to find people. And immediately Lou was like the first guy in my, you know, that popped in my head as far as a guitarist. So I was like, it was one of those things. It's funny. We were in my room in Long Island, and when we talked, as soon as we broke off with Rich, knew it wasn't going to work. Not in a bad way. We were still friends with him. But Jason's like, do you know anyone? I was like, oh, Lou. It was one of those days I called him up. I was like, Lou, come over. He came over, and that was it. That was like the beginning of the band. Like, literally, it was no like.
Where did Nicole come from?
Oh, so then it was one of those things we just couldn't find a drum. We couldn't find. We were probably maybe playing, the three of us. And with the time, for anyone knows the first record, I think maybe the first song we worked on was maybe Anywhere in Europe, because it was.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, it was maybe because it was we didn't really start writing maybe louder stuff until Nicole popped in, but that was one of the things that that was probably the first thing he wrote while we were together, two of us. So Luke came over, the band was like, I introduced them together, and it was like that perfect meeting of like, I knew they were so different, but they were both had such strong music connections with me. I was like, let me try it out, see if it works, and it just did.
What was the first rehearsal like when you guys got together?
Oh, just easy and like really, the three of us, you mean?
Was it three of you before it was
way
the four
before
of you?
It was a good couple of months. We just couldn't find anyone that wanted to. I don't remember trying anyone out, but it was one of those things like we'd ask someone and they'd be like, I'm not really interested. Or
when the four of you guys got together, what was that like?
Nicole, I went to go see a gig with my high school friend, my friend Megan, actually. She was in a band, and she was with Nicole, was the drummer at the time. And I went to go see them. And I was just like, the band I didn't like so much, but Nicole's drumming, I was like, oh my, it was like really, really powerful and like simple. And I just one of those things that had like, and the type of band we wanted to be was like that, you know, at the time, it wasn't, you know, with everything being so hardcore and loud, we definitely wanted to be a band that had dynamics of quiet and loud. And it looked like, from what I was hearing and seeing, she had that kind of finesse that would like fit into that kind of thing. But the problem was she was in this band. So I was like, what's the way I could even, approach this properly? I got her number, and I was like, listen, I know you're in a band already. Would you want to try out and maybe like just see if we could vibe, you know, as with the three of us, you know, we're just trying to write some stuff. I don't have anything to send you, but you want to just come by and see if it worked. And so she was going to NYU, and She did. She took a train out, stayed with us for the weekend.
Oh, hold on a second. There's some sound issues, so people are complaining. I
Uh,
think it's because I have my volume up very
uh,
loud. Um,
Want me to
can you
lower
talk?
mine? Yeah.
Guys, is that better?
How is that, Greg? Greg
I
says.
have a feeling that's better.
Okay.
Hugo, is that good? Does it sound better when Tommy's talking? Tommy,
Yeah.
all right, cool. So,
Is that better?
yeah,
Oh yeah. So they came. He came. It was one of those things. Like it was very. The other bands I was in was very. It was never. It was more things that were things we were trying out. It was not a thing like I never had that feeling of a chemistry with any of the other bands. It was chemistry as far as being friends, but that moment it was like me, Jason, Lou with the drummer that fit into that music. It was just. It was really one of those like cheesy things. It's a magical feeling and
no,
like.
that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah,
Is
it really was.
yeah.
Like, and we it was one of those. We had three. I think I'm pretty sure we had three songs. The only one of them made it to one of the records, which was Anywhere in Europe, and then there were two other ones. And within that first practice, we had three songs done already. And like, she picked them up pretty quickly. She was quiet. Jason was quiet at the time, and it was just a very easy, magical day. I don't know. I remember very clearly. I picked up Nicole. It was raining. We went over. She broke her bass drum pedal. I remember
Well,
that pretty.
I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because these things
Yeah,
go by so quickly,
yeah.
and we haven't even gotten to the later part of the band, and we have about 20 more minutes before we switch over to Lou.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you were, Long Island, when you were in that whole scene, one thing that I thought was interesting about you guys was that there was a lot of different fractures to it. It was like the
Mm.
hardcore scene and the punk scene and the ska scene, but you didn't really feel like you were exclusively part of any of that stuff, right? And I mean,
No,
I
no,
thought,
no, not at all. Go on, sorry.
no, I just thought that was cool. And when I came to the fold, I was coming from the hardcore scene, so that was kind of interesting. I heard about On the Might of Princes for the first time through my friend Conrad, um, and he got me into a lot of punk and hardcore music. And we were really into Long Island bands like Silent Majority and
Hmm.
Glassjaw and VOD and Mind Over Matter. That was like the stuff that we were listening to. And we noticed that we were also into like Sunny Day Real Estate and Quicksand and stuff like that. And we noticed that there was a flyer. We were going to see Promise Ring. They noticed that there was a band from Long Island called On the Might of Princes, and it blew our minds that you guys went to the city to play because it was like kind of like a lot of Long Island bands that they did not that they didn't play in the city, but you had a full length out, and it seemed like you just skipped the you like skipped like doing the whole thing where you like have to like prove yourself in Long Island before you go play with a band like Promise Ring. So tell me the name of the first record, when it came out, and how you ended up playing with the Promise Ring, because that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that was a huge deal at the time, especially since we're fans of them. It was actually Promise Ring in American football.
Hey, shout out to Nicole. Hey, what's up,
Hey,
Nicole?
sweet. What's up, my
Nicole,
bud?
if you can hear me out there, I'm so glad you joined us. Um,
White
I'm
bitch
going
up.
to interview. This is great. This is really special, guys, because Nicole
It
was the
really is.
original. Nicole was the
Uh,
original drummer for On the Might of Princes. So,
Nicole, now
um,
that you're here, Nicole got she's the one who got that Promise Ring gig. Actually, this was before the Making of a Conversation came out. I think we only had a demo at the time, if I'm
you know what?
remembering.
Let's do something special here. You want to let Nicole answer that question and join us, and then we'll switch back to you.
Yeah, please, please. What's up?
Nicole, if you see the request to join button, hit the button and let's get you on the screen if you're comfortable with that. Uh, if you're not, just comment and let us know, and then I'll switch back to Tommy. It might be cool to have Nicole tell that story because I think you mentioned she was the one that got you guys on that show.
Yeah, it was. I remember we were playing. I mean, at the time we were still playing a lot. It was like we were still playing quite a bit in Long Island, different weird like rec centers and things like that. And then that jump to get to that show, we were like, oh, it was really, pretty nerve wracking. we had the demo at the time, and it was definitely the biggest crowd we had played to.
And Lou mentioned one thing that was with American football also.
Yeah,
I just found
yeah,
the flyer for that. That was a CMJ Music Festival, and man, that was such a crazy thing to me. I was like,
it was.
you know, because most bands had a demo or a 7-inch, and you just came out of the gate with a full length, and you're playing with these like, at the time, to me, those were like rock stars almost. You know, it's like, oh shit. Do you remember that being a special show for you guys?
I do, because there was the build up to it. It was one of those things like, because we were fans, and it was in the city. It might have been the first time maybe we played CBs or something before that, but it was maybe the first like legit like ticket shows you would get a ticket to. You know what I mean?
One
That
second. Hey, Nicole. So, what? Maybe try hopping off of the live and rejoining. As soon as you join, you should see a request to join the conversation. So we'll keep talking, and maybe we could get you in here for a minute or two. But
uh,
yeah.
yeah, it was a great show. It really was. It was just really fun, and like it was one of those things. And I think we had a mailing list, and we immediately found that people were going to see us more afterwards. We played, I think it was Brownies, maybe a couple weeks later, and people knew the songs. It was that kind of thing. That's kind of what set the fire a little bit at the time. Um, yeah, it was a special time, and we were just playing. We just kept playing and playing and playing and writing songs and things like that. It was definitely like,
We could hop back into that topic if we end up getting Nicole on the screen. But prior to that, I know you were playing. You know, back in the day, a lot of bands played at youth centers, VFW halls,
yeah.
and strange rental places. That was kind of the thing. Oh, cool. I think she might have figured it out. She, hold on. I don't see the request. Hey, Nicole, sorry to put you on the spot. Maybe try that again. So hop off the live um, conversation and then rejoin us. And the request to join disappears. So try doing it right away when you come back to us, and then I'll get you on screen. But you were doing a lot of local bands, a lot of young bands, a lot of youth centers. After that show, I mean, I joined eventually, and we still were playing VFW halls, the strange places. But did you feel like the legitimacy of the band, like you were getting more, like more show offers with like non-local? You know what I mean? Like more like
Yeah, for sure. Yes, yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely got to that point, but like we treated it in a way that was still like, I don't know. We didn't have this like ideal like we only could play like legit shows and stuff. We still were playing all the time, no matter. We pretty much didn't have a never said no to any show offers at the time. We played everything from like Sweet 16s to the Rec Center to anywhere. It was like this thing we didn't really have too much of a prejudice of where we're playing, I guess.
um yeah, no, and then, you know, later on, obviously things sort of changed, you know, with the band. I just got distracted. I was trying to figure out how to get Nicole in here, and it just doesn't seem to be working. Let me see if I can actually just add her to.
Okay.
I think I can add her. Let's
I don't
see.
know how that works.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
threesome.
it's just it's just not working.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll figure it out later. Now I'm like doing weird shit.
How long do you have to stay on for?
So the thing basically, it kicks you off after an hour, so I'm gonna have to restart it to to um to continue the conversation. I joined you guys. I saw you guys play with Silent Majority, and I was on the show. I was in a band called Runner Up that eventually turned into Taking Back Sunday. I was in a band with Eddie Reyes, who was in Clockwise and Inside and Movie Life, and we played a show, and I want to say that it was 1998, and I was really excited because even though I grew up in the hardcore scene, I liked Quicksand and I liked Sunny Day Real Estate and I liked all of those bands. And the fact that you were from Long Island and playing that kind of music was kind of mind blowing because I felt like that style of music, for the most part, which I kind of was like thinking like braid, cap and jazz, promise ring. That's kind of what I got out of it. Was something very like Midwest, like Chicago style. How do you feel you were received from the quote unquote hardcore scene?
Well, at the time, yeah. What would I guess going to see? I guess the first time maybe I saw Garden Variety, Quicksand, and was Mind Over Matter. I guess those were like the big three for us. Going to see people doing, I guess, hardcore music, but maybe in a more way that's a little more experimental. They
Yeah,
kind of paved the way, in that sense. So once we got in, I think there were elements of all those bands in our stuff. So maybe it definitely made it a little easier for us to play and be accepted. I think, but the good part about the way we were able to play shows with hardcore bands or pop punk bands or whoever else. The fact that we didn't fit into a niche made it easier for us to kind of expand our following and play with whoever.
yeah.
So that was a good thing, and maybe some people saw it as a bad thing too. I don't really know, but I think for us, I think especially, I think for me, I like that we were able to play with a lot of different types of bands, and we're accepted because we definitely had all of those kind of elements in the songs we had, because we could play maybe a more emo show because we had those elements, or hardcore because we had definitely had some like louder parts and stuff like that. So people could kind of find something to grab onto. Maybe they were confused at first, but the fact that we were playing so much, they almost like had to accept it because we were playing like at least twice a week at that point in all different parts of Long Island. But
Right.
I definitely saw good responses in the beginning. Maybe they weren't, maybe not from everybody, but it was definitely more well received than I thought it was going to be at the time.
I remember right before I joined you guys playing a show with the Strider and
Yes.
Fair Warning, and I was in a band called the Crush List, and then that was I left Runner Up. Runner Up changed their name to Taking Back Sunday, and got new members, which was like Jesse Lacey from Brand New, and eventually Adam from North Carolina moved and played bass and became the singer. But I was in a band called the Crush List in between, and then and we got along really well with you guys. And it was the second time I had met you, but we didn't really know each other. I think I had to reintroduce myself, and I remember you guys being really nice because at the time a lot of bands were intimidating for me. Like a lot of bands, whether I don't know, maybe now looking back, if it was so much that they were snobby that maybe people were just young and awkward and didn't know how to talk to people. So anyway, I was very intimidated by people, and you guys were very warm and friendly, and you gave hugs, and I thought that was really strange
Yeah.
because I wasn't used to that. And there was, I guess, I mean, you could speak more to this, like I guess there was like some musical differences going on, and you guys were parting ways with Nicole.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. I mean, go on. I'm sorry.
no, no, please, I wasn't there, so like I'm trying to transition.
Yeah, it was nothing. There was like maybe any arguments we had. I could look back now and like it almost seems like good memories because it was still a thing that we were immature and kids. You know what I mean? So I do look up back on all that fondly. But a lot of I guess maybe the disagreements were happening between Jason and Nicole, so I can't really speak for it so much.
Sure.
But he wanted to. Yeah, I remember being like, I grew up with siblings, and there were like arguments in the house, stuff like that. It had that same kind of lighthearted vibe of like, I guess people bickering. So I was kind of used to being a mediator with friends and family because of that. So it was happening. It wasn't a thing that I look back on that it was like such a dark thing. But the main driver, I think Jason really wanted to take the band in maybe a way that was more a little more aggressive. If you listen to Making of a Conversation, which is the first record, which had a lot of maybe a Sunny Day influence, cursive and stuff like that, he really wanted to bring up maybe a little more of the riffy metal aggression, screaming and stuff like that.
I'm gonna bring that up because he was into the aggression. He was more aggressive vocally than than like Sunny Day Real Estate. I mean, that was kind of aggressive, but like it wasn't like straight up like Braid or any of those types of bands. It was kind of like that, but he liked metal. I remember he was actually the first person that played Opeth for me, and I remember he liked uh, them just as much as he liked someone like Elliott Smith or something like that, you know, or whatever. So very interesting because at the time I the word screamo was so strange to me. Like I had heard the term, and had heard bands that fit under that category. In Long Island, there was a band called Seisha, and I know he liked that band. I think he did like some of that music, but yeah, it was a marriage of a lot of different things. It was hard to pigeonhole, and I thought that was cool. And certainly the second record that we played on when I was in the band was more aggressive, and there were some songs that were a little metal, and I had a double bass drum pedal on a couple songs, a China cymbal. But we started talking after that show with Strider and Fair Warning, and I was given the option of trying out for Strider or trying out for On the Might of Princes, and I chose On the Might of Princes because I felt like those guys. Now, this is before bands were starting to become famous from our scene, but the Strider was this band that was like kind of on that tip. They were very into making sure their hair looked nice and that they dressed cool. You guys were not that band.
No.
And I just felt a little more down to earth with you guys, and I'm glad I did that. What do you remember about writing Where You Are and Where You Want to Be and our first practices together when that all came together?
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, of course, it was a drag. I know I just read Nicole said it was like scream matches. Yeah, that stuff definitely happened, and it was nice to have that kind of eventually break off because I knew it was such a it wasn't getting fun for them too, and I guess as a family, you know. So when we knew we wanted to go in a more aggressive direction, um, and seeing you play, it was one of those things. It was kind of the same way we got Nicole. We saw you play with Crush Us. It was just like, what the, you
Oh,
know, it
I
was
just
like,
want to say this too, and I know I'm not. Nicole was when I first saw Nicole play. It's too bad that I can't get her on. I know she's watching, but like I was so impressed by the band on record, and when I saw you guys live, and Nicole was such a huge part of that, and I felt weird that I was even allowed to step into those shoes because it seemed like a band where everyone was sort of irreplaceable. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Maybe we could figure out how to get her on the screen later, but I just wanted to get that out of the way.
of course. Well, the truth is, when that stopped, it almost felt like like we're kind of starting a new band. You know what I mean? That was that feeling in my heart. That's what was like. We knew we wanted to stay that kind of. We were first finding a footing with making a conversation. It was a thing that we knew we wanted to continue in that style, I guess. Um, so we felt like a fresh start. So when you came in, it was like almost like we were practicing in a new area. We played in your basement, um, and it felt there was that same kind of feeling of feeling right and that chemistry right away. I remember that first practice very well at your house.
It's my
Um,
parents' house.
yeah, yeah, your parents' basement, and it was that same kind of vibe. I remember being very aggressive and very. It was just kind of the stuff we couldn't play with her, but not in a way, not because of her skill, but we were in that direction she wasn't really wanting to go in. So when we had you, we were able to let loose and be a little more. I remember Jason feeling a little more free because he wanted to be. That's the kind of stuff he wanted to do.
I don't
Um,
know if I'm wrong or right about this, but like I remember Jason having a lot of songs that he wrote himself already.
he did, yeah.
Go like he had you guys, we all collaborated a lot, but I remember him showing us 13 Cheers, almost finished. I remember You Can Only Be So Careful and Water versus the Anchor almost exclusively kind of being handed over like he finished it already. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, he wrote Caboose and Allusion to Italy himself, right?
For sure. Yeah, that record is pretty much. I remember, his. It was one of those things. He like built the whole, car and like let us have our way. Like had a fit in. Like it wasn't like he would write the song, but let us be very free with our parts, things like that.
For sure.
But he we definitely the core, all the songs you just mentioned, even at the Hat Stays On. I think Lou wrote some of that. But all pretty
For
much.
collaborative, I remember like "And the Hat Stays On."
Yeah,
Well,
because
actually, as long as she doesn't smoke, he wrote by himself.
that was written actually when Nicole was in the band. That was probably the last thing we wrote with her. That song especially.
Right.
I remember we were working on. Actually, we took a car trip. I think we were going to go see. Oh God, I forgot. Crazy Fest. Is that it?
Yes, that was a big
Louisville?
festival in Louisville.
Yeah, we were on the way there. I remember being on the way there, and he was showing me lyrics for that particular song. Like, that stuck out in my head. And that's when she was still in the band. We might have played with her in a similar way. Maybe that was probably the last thing.
Nicole said that that song is also about them fighting with each other.
Part of it, yeah.
Louisville.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, because I think I forget he mentions the streets we were taking, and all this other
Hey,
stuff.
Nicole,
Yeah,
just so you know, we weren't the only one that fought with him. I didn't make it into the song, but we definitely all fought with him.
what I meant before about being light. When I think about the lightheartedness of our arguments when Nicole was in the band, they didn't reach any of the heights that we did at the time. Just to be frank, of our arguments way later in the band were much worse.
Right.
A lot more at stake and stuff like that. So that's what I meant by that with her. But going back to the beginning of where you are, that was definitely it was just one of those things. I mean, you were there. It was just like a spark of energy, and everything flowed really. We would write like a song a week. It was very intense and.
You know what? Let's do this. I'm gonna try something.
Okay.
I'm gonna take you off the screen, and we'll bring you back.
Okay.
And let's see if that works for Nicole to try to join us before we start moving on to other parts of the band.
That's cool.
I'm gonna get you off right now.
And do I have to request to get back in?
Yes. I'll let you know. Okay. All right. If you're joining us, hey, there he is.
What's up?
This is the longest episode I've ever done, but I guess while we still have an audience, we can still do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you wanted me to go back or not.
Let's do it.
People here.
Cool, man. So we covered a lot with Lou. I'll ask you a few questions, and then we could tie it up. What are you most proud of when you think about On the Minor Princes?
I guess piggybacking off what Lou said, with I guess how open we were with I guess people that wanted to see us, welcoming, like setting like a comfortable space for everyone, no matter who they were, what they looked like, or if they were part of this scene or that. We kind of threw that out the window anytime we played, and I think we acted that way. And that's kind of what I always wanted when I went to go see. I remember seeing Fishbone when I was like
Fishbone.
14, like 14 or 15, and they had a similar vibe in the audience and them, and like it was and I was always like, oh, I would love to have a band like that. Obviously, we didn't sound like Fishbone, but I remember
it could have sounded like Fishbone. That would have been sick.
Well, yeah, if we dressed like them, maybe. But it was that feeling of being warm and welcoming. I think we did that naturally, and it felt that was probably the best. And also, I'm very proud of just that the catalog's out now, and people could, people maybe younger people could revisit it, and it's something they could look back on. They could explore that world now that it's it's out on Spotify and everything. At least that people could revisit it now. I think that's really cool. So both things, especially like I said, it was very important that we were able to put that out there in a way that was, I don't know, non-judgmental to the people that were.
Yeah, man, that was definitely I think that was our blessing and our curse, depending on how you looked at it, because, but it took a lot of years, like I said to Lou, a band of multiple people, which he had a really great quote that Corey just cut and pasted. Lou is always good with the one-liners where he said, it's like being in a sexless marriage with 4 dudes. That was that was a line. That was a very Lou line.
When did he say, was that a new one or is that an old Lou?
No, he said that 5 minutes ago.
Oh, I missed it. I think it got cut off.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right.
It is.
That's really like that.
But
Metaphor dudes in five though.
Yeah, it's like what I was gonna say is it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time when you're in a band and you have goals and you're trying to be professional or whatever. And then, but now after having so many years to like grow as an adult, and like have a better understanding of who you are and like what you're doing and all that stuff, everything makes so much sense to me now. Why the band sounded and behaved and ended up the way it did. I don't actually believe that we were meant to like be in that club of bands. It just wasn't who we were.
No, I also think it wasn't sustainable. Like I think if we did get to that level, it would have been a thing that turned out to be a disaster with
Sure.
weather. So, there was so many, there was a dark cloud over it. As much love as we put into it, there was always kind of a, not always, but especially towards the end, there was such a dark cloud over it that if we got to that level where there was maybe more responsibilities or more, I don't know, more risks to take, I don't know if we were meant at that point to do it. I think if later, if we got our heads together, maybe we could have done something like that. But at that point, at that age is that we were at, I think whatever looking back on things, I don't really judge it. So, but when I look at it for that pocket of time, I think it's that's the most we could have did, and that's to think we should have did this or should have did that is just a waste of time in my head. So I'm like, what we did, I'm very proud of, and I think I think it's the fact that people still listen to it is something. This is 20 years
Hey,
going on
what's your fondest memory of Jay Rosenthal?
of Jay Rosenthal. Oh wow, like the I guess I mean it's hard to say like pick one, but just his I think we shared a lot of the same humor with things. So that kind of thing. We actually worked numerous jobs with him. It wouldn't even be anything musical, honestly. So it'd be like when we were like goofing off at jobs and like seeing the way he treated customers, like he was always kind of a wise ass. Uh, like funny things like one thing like this snobby girl used to come in to get coffee and be wicked rude to us. And one day she always like order like a low fat cappuccino. If give her like half and half or something like that kind of thing was always classic J Rose. So that kind of stuff, and also we helped each other through a couple of wicked things that happened to us respectfully. So he had a warm side to him and really 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 funny. So his humor, like I said, I really choose to look back on everything in my life now. Whatever the positive part was, at my age now, especially now that I have kids, I'm like, what do I want to portray to them? What do I want to remember? And I always just choose to look at the positive. And with him, especially, I guess, Scream, his humor was my favorite thing about him in that sense. Because he could, like, obviously he could darken up a room, but he could really make something that wasn't funny, which you've seen. So that, and yeah, that specific, anyone specific, I can't really tell, but he just the way he treated people, I guess maybe like he had a few good one-liners
He
that
was
maybe
a
I shouldn't.
fucking very he was a very like he didn't give a shit is what I'm trying to say.
No,
He was fearless, and he had, for better or for worse, he had a set of balls. And Hugo just mentioned something that I should bring up, which is a very entertaining story, which is that there were a bunch of guys at a venue called Local 7 that I ran that wanted to fight him. And Jason was about 90 pounds. And these guys were huge, tattooed, hardcore dudes.
yeah.
And he flicked a cigarette, or he lit a cigarette and just slipped away, is what I'm reading Hugo saying. And I remember that. And I also remember being at the venue a couple days later, and the same guys came to warn me, because there was a thing in Long Island that was very kind of the hardcore scene in Long Island and New York in general obviously has like kind of like a gangster vibe that maybe exists in other places, but like certainly in New York. And like I'm not going to name the people, but they were very upset, and they said to me, if you don't tell that singer of yours in your little band uh, to shut his mouth, we're gonna fucking hack him up into pieces and throw him in a dumpster, is what they said. And so I was terrified. One of the guys that said that had just gotten out of jail for murder.
Right.
Not a yeah, he got out of jail for murder,
Hmm.
and he had gang affiliation. And a couple days later, and I'm going to give a shout out to like the guys in Killy Rivals. A couple days later, the same guys came back to the venue, and they were like, kind of like looking at me in a way that was not great. And I told Paul from Killy Rivals and Gary from Killy Rivals and um, the Watch, who's still a guy that's around in the scene, what had happened. And they walked over to the two guys, and I don't know what they said to this day, um, but um, but the guy came over and apologized to me, and he was like, "I'm sorry about what happened." So Jason just didn't give a shit. He just did not
No,
care.
Lou had written before. Lou actually got the three of us worked in this like snowboard binding shop or something like that. And there were three of us, and there's three like maybe a little more gangster guys that were each had like a counterpart to them. It was really funny. But Jason had beef with one of the other guys, and then Lou wound up fighting him or something. It was just a crazy thing. He mouthed it off to him, and Lou stuck up for him. There's a lot of stories like that,
We got into a fight one day on tour. I mean,
oh yeah, that was
I
that
by the
part.
way, I'm telling these stories because I think it's a positive thing. I don't think fighting is
Sure.
good,
No.
but I just want to let it be known that Jason had a set of balls, and there's something to be said about that. He just didn't give a shit, and he didn't care if you were bigger than him. He just said what was on his mind on stage and off stage, and that's
Yes.
pretty cool.
He took a few black eyes too. It wasn't like
He
it wasn't like he knew he wasn't
he took some hits,
oh sure.
and he stood up. He got
Yeah.
back up. He got back up.
Dude, there was
Anyway,
a guy when we worked at this coffee shop. This huge guy used to come in. He worked at like I don't forget where he worked, but he used to come in, he was ripped, and Jason mouthed off to him one day. I wasn't even there. But I walked to my car, dude cuts me off. He's like, "You better talk to your fucking friend." I was like, "What? Who are you talking? What are you talking about?" He's like, "You little piece of shit. You're a little lesbian." If he called him a lesbian or something, he's like, "You little lesbian bullshit fucker with glasses."
Jesus
I was
Christ.
like, I was like, "You're gonna okay." So I ran back in because I was leaving my shift. Jason took it off for me. I was like, "Dude, this guy, the guy that works at Macy's wants to fuck you up." He's like, "I don't give a fuck."
Wait,
He's
hold
like,
on.
"Tell him."
Just repeat that line. The guy at
What?
Macy's wants to fuck you up. That's such
Yeah.
a fucking like
No,
specific
he was
thing to
he was
like working in a
he was
mall.
typical, yeah, but he was like the typical like muscle drinker guy, this huge guy. But like I don't know, he was very upset when I told Jason he was not scared. He was like, "Tell him to come down here." I was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm going." It was that kind of thing. But
That's
yeah, he like pulled
fantastic.
me over in the parking lot, and that's not the first time something like that happened at that show you're talking about. No, that house
Well,
where
hold on.
Jason.
Let me tell a story real quick, and then we'll wrap it up and talk a little bit more about the bands directly. But long story short, we were on tour. I was in a kitchen it was a house party in Denver. There was a guy there was bands playing in the basement. It was a punk house. The guy that lived there kind of looked like if you took Chuck Reagan from Hot Water Music and Henry Rollins and like merged them into like one dude. And something happened, and I was with Jason in the kitchen, and it was a packed house. Um, and like Jason didn't say, well,
No, no, he
no,
said,
no, no,
he said,
the guy,
"Excuse me" to Jason. Jason said, "Yeah, excuse you." That's what it
yeah, the
was.
guy like bumped into Jason, and he was fucking like jocked. He was like
Yeah.
jacked, and then
No,
Jason
but
said,
the
Jason,
guy said, "Excuse me," and Jason said, "No, yeah, excuse
he
you."
said, "Excuse
That's what it
you,"
was. Yeah, and
and
then
so let me just tell this part. So
yeah, sorry.
they start fucking mouthing off to each other in the kitchen, and it was the middle of winter, and he pushed Jason out into the snow, out of the kitchen into the street. And then I went out to help him because I had way more experience fighting, and I tried to pull him back. I was gonna I was gonna fight the guy for him, and get him out of the way. But what I ended up doing was I held Jason so that the guy could hit him. And then we couldn't find you. And the guys in Insurgent spilled out, and we had to like run into the van, and we drove off, and the guy jumped on the back of the car and was punching
Yes.
the car. And we
I remember.
tried to like push him off the car by like turning the wheel.
Yeah, we had a lot of Grand Theft Auto type situations like that, but I remember that one actually because that guy was serious. He really wanted to.
Okay, let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up. We're putting out a documentary. What do you want people to take away from our whole story?
I guess what I said before, just to be like a band you could, I guess, feel comfortable listening to, and something that could, you could feel comfortable listening to with people and or by yourself, or something that could maybe be cathartic, I guess, for your life. Coming back to the way the music is, if they couldn't experience the social aspect of it at the time, maybe they could at least feel that, feel the beauty of it, and not knowing some of the dark stuff that happened. Because in the end, that stuff really was more internal. Because even I think at our darkest points, I don't think it was felt by the people that were going to listen to us. I think the music was always bigger than what was happening with the individual members, or if there was tension here or that. We birthed this beautiful body of work that people could revisit. So I think that's something I'd love people to take away, and not think about like why they broke up, or this person said this, or this person thinks this person's a sellout, or all this other bullshit stuff. Like the music part is really what holds up, and I think that's also why, even though I'm very surprised, I think that's also why people do still revisit the songs, and I still get emails from people saying they like this song or this or that. I think that's the most beautiful part to me. But
do you have
what about
any
you?
do you have any regrets from our time in the band?
I don't. I actually don't, because I think you would ask me 5, 6 years ago, I would have said that. But at this point, my mindset is not at the point of like regretting things I've done or haven't done, or things like that. Actually don't really don't, because I think any decision you make is relative to the time you're in. So you got to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and not judge what you did in the past or judge yourself in the present either. I'm really not big on judging myself or what I should have done. That's just my own point of view, and I think it kind of drags you down if you do that. That's why I really choose to look at just the positive of it, and knowing what we did. It was a lot. It really was a lot, and we have to be patient with how we handled certain things, and not be so we should have did this or that or things like that. I don't know if it makes sense, but
No, it makes sense. Yeah, man, it's awesome, and I'm glad that I got to talk to you guys, and that Nicole was able to pop in at the last minute. Yeah,
that was beautiful.
I think if I was to ask myself the same question,
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
want
you.
people to what I want people to take away from our story and our movie that I'm going to be working on, which, by the way, I know that it's a tough time to donate. I totally understand. The only reason why I'm doing this is because I am stuck at home and I have the time to do it. So, I do have a Kickstarter. It's not a Kickstarter, but it's a GoFundMe that's on the Facebook page and on my socials. And we are trying to raise money to finish a documentary. We're at the middle mark. We're at like about $720, and I'm trying to raise $1,500 to finish it. I'm almost done. By the 20th, I'll be done with all my interviews, and then I'm aiming for like a summer or fall release. But I just want people. Okay, let me start with this. I want people to see how exciting it is to make music with friends, which is what we were in the beginning. And it was very genuine. And there's nothing like making music with people that you click with on a artistic level, but on a personal level, and you learn just as much from them, from who they are. And I became very close with your family, as you would from how much I learned from you as a rhythm section, as a drummer, And as much as I've learned from Jason was a genius when it came to lyrics. I want to say that about him. He was able to write lyrics that were easy to remember so that you could sing along, and that conveyed emotions that were vague enough for anybody to interpret into their own lives. Um, a lot of cookie cutter bands at the time wrote very blatant songs about relationships and their ex-girlfriends, um, and having a broken heart. And maybe he had some songs that were about those things, but he did it in such a great way that you could have interpreted it to represent any part of your life in any way whatsoever. So that's what the genius was behind Jason. And that's not an easy thing to do when you don't write songs in a pop formula with, which we didn't really do too often. Like, he still was able to make things memorable. So that's my compliment to Jason, and what I hope people learn from our story. And that being a professional musician is great, and I am still trying to figure that out for myself. But the memories and the friendships that you get when you treat people with respect on your journey become more valuable in life. Because bands come and go, record labels come and go, money's great. None of us are ever, I don't know if I'll ever be rich, but the friendships that remain today, 20 years later plus, are more valuable than any of the things we may or may have not gotten from fame. So that's my takeaway. That's how I wrap it up.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully said. I mean, what I was saying before about like encapsulating, I guess my what I want to take away from it. That's the external part, but the internal part is being in a room. Like I remember specifically being in your basement and like looking at each of you, and all of you had so good at what you were doing. Each of you were doing, and just being very grateful that I was able to share that with all three of you guys at the time, and Nicole prior to that. But in that moment, I remember feeling like, oh my God, everyone's playing at such a high level of passion, and
Yeah.
it was always that's always what I wanted from a band, and I got it with you guys.
Thank you.
At the
I
time.
love you, and I love your family, and I regret that I haven't
Doing it.
seen you in a long time. I haven't seen Lou in 2 years, and seeing his face on here was really nice. And you know, I want to end with this. We're yeah, we're promoting stuff, um, but the thing is that we worked really hard all those years, and we don't have the ability to obviously play for you. So
Yeah.
finding out that a bunch of people bought our record, and that people are excited, having a music video out, and knowing that people watched it. Um, these are amazing things for us to experience 20 years later. And, um, I don't want to blow up anyone's spots or fucking like make any promises that won't happen. But one thing I can promise you is that the documentary will come out and will be finished. Um, Jason's girlfriend, Emily, who I want to give a shout out to, found a amazing hidden gem while she was looking for stuff for the documentary, which is a soundboard audio of On the Might of Princes live at CBGB's. I have not heard it yet. If it sounds halfway decent and I can salvage it, I am trying to preserve our memory and legacy by continuing the releases. Rocklock wrote us about re-releasing The Making of a Conversation, and I know that Mike and I would like to try to re-release Sirens. And yes, there are unreleased recordings, not of songs you haven't heard, but I'm going to get my hands on we did Go Fuck Yourself with Phil Douglas from Iron Cheek and Latterman. That is somewhere. I know I could find it. I could call him. And we also did Here Come the Sirens. That is a alternate version. So there is material out there. And
Where's the CB's from? I don't know. What show was it? What year is that? CBGB.
I told Emily that I'm going to have to wait and see. We played CBGB's at least 3 or 4 times. And
That's why I was wondering.
I would have to see what songs we played in order to know if it was a Sirens era or Where You Are era. But she also, I didn't tell you this, Tom, so everyone's here for this news, but she got a live recording from Germany. And that's the
Wait,
only documentation of us playing in Europe. So, yeah, I mean, it is extremely bittersweet to know about this stuff.
well, the
I'm
movie
getting
too. I
choked up.
mean, that's right. Yeah, I know
I'm
what
getting
you mean.
choked up
I was
talking
getting,
about it. Yeah,
no, same. But the movie thing, I always want it to be as reachable as possible for people. Like you know what I mean? That's why the Spotify streaming stuff happening now is good, and the movie, anything that's gonna let people revisit or visit for the first time, I'm always game for it. And I think those two things happening at around the same time is really, really positive. So, you
yeah,
know what I mean? It was a drag that you get emails once in a while. How come your stuff's not on this or that? Now that it is and it's available for anyone to revisit, I think is amazing. And the movie, I hope, helps wheel people back in too. I think that'd be really cool to see it from that internal space, and then maybe they'll want to revisit some of the songs again and check out things for the first time. Because
absolutely.
you go, what did I see? I just saw the ZZ Top documentary. Oh, it's
I've
it's
heard the
incredible.
Z Top documentary is awesome. I want to watch it.
Yeah, it's incredible. Obviously, it's a whole different, but it's one of those things like you get to see that internal story, and it makes you want to like maybe check out some of the songs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, my plan with that is to get it done by the winter. I'm sorry, by the fall at the latest, and hopefully the world will get back to some kind of place where we can invite people out and be in public. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we will. It's gonna be one of those. I don't think it's gonna be like a day. Okay, everyone run out of your house. It's gonna be a gradual build, but it's gonna happen. It's not gonna be this
yeah.
like this. We're just in the muck of it now.
Well, dude, I'm gonna let you go because I can't believe like people have been on and off watching us for 3 hours. This has actually been going on for about 2 or 3 hours now. So yeah, I love you,
Oh, it's
man,
been.
and
What time is it?
I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody on
Love you
my
too.
own and make a few quick announcements. But you're the
Love
best.
you guys.
I'll talk to you soon, brother.
You're the best, man.
All right,
See you guys.
love you.